And just sitting that there's music from Styx, of course, who had their label was A&M Records, and A&M did such a great job with them. Also Supertramp, Styx, Supertramp, and Krista Berg, all A&M Records label mates, who had a specific sort of relationship with CHOM over the years. 7:10, and as I had my headphones on, listening to Styx, Krista Berg was tuning his guitar. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning. I think that relationship, actually, you're talking about, it actually is a love affair.
A love affair. You prefer refer to as a love affair. Nice to see you again, old friend.
Thank you very much. It's been great to remember the days of CHOM and be back here again.
Yeah, I've always been so impressed by your memory of your early days at CHOM. A lot of artists that we helped in the beginning go on to stardom and forget. You've never forgotten the relationship you had, not just with CHOM, but with the audience in Montreal.
And Montreal, yeah. Well, it goes back nearly 40 years, possibly.
That's true.
Yeah, I know. 40 years in the business. You haven't changed at all. But the first time I came to Montreal, I was doing solo support with Supertramp, and they had that big record, Crime of the Century. And I remember going up to McGill University, big eyes, looking around this new world, Montreal. And because I speak some French, it was kind of helpful that I could talk to people. And in spite of the slightly strange accent that you have this part of the world. And anyway, McGill University, I go out on stage to do my 20 minutes, one guy with a guitar, and the boos and whistles and catcalls. And I realized, no, I haven't come across the Atlantic just to be shouted at like this. So I stuck it out, and then I'm a stubborn person, and you have to have quite a lot of ability in this business for that. And I went and took an encore. It wasn't desired. And the boos and catcalls, but within a year, and because of CHOM, Spanish Train and Other Stories had become a monster record. Yeah. And then subsequently it was the Place des Arts, it was the Théâtre Saint-Denis, and of course the Forum. Many shows in the Forum, 15,000 people, whatever it was. And I've had a long love affair with Montreal as a direct result.
When I think about that era, a friend of mine who actually, when I was talking to an old friend of mine, who I've known since we were 14, he called me one day when we were kids in high school and said, "You've got to get over here. I got to play you this record." And it was your record, Spanish Train. And he said he went to see you in 79 in Calgary at the Stampede. Oh, yeah. And he said you had to fight that night, too. You won them over with Patricia the Stripper. But we were talking online the last couple of days, and we were saying in that era, you're used to the, big band, loud rock and roll, and On You Walk with
guy with a guitar. Yeah.
That took a certain amount of courage, I think, did it not?
I think the word is cojones.
There you
go. Plenty of them. Well, in this business, to survive, certainly you have to be like a boxer and to be knocked over and get up again and wipe off the blood and get up again, because it's just you. I'm the engine that runs the business, and I've written and recorded about nearly 300 songs now, all the words and the music. And I still have a lot of interest and get a huge amount of enjoyment about going around the world and performing, which is why I'm coming back here to Canada.
Do you remember, was the night at the Forum your first sort of arena headlining 15,000 people kind of gig?
Probably was. I think as we moved up and down America, again, supporting people in the earliest, because that's the way you had to do it.
Right.
We used to say, God, we're having a crap time here. Jeez, can't wait to get back to Montreal where there's the real people out there. But, the people here in Montreal, they've been so generous and so affectionate. And I think one of the last times I was here, I remember we had 2 shows, possibly in the Place des Arts, and I walked out on the stage, and the cheering and the clapping and the love went on for 3 or 4 minutes, and it was a very emotional thing, you know. I kept on saying, "No, ça suffit, that's enough, thank you very much," and then, "No, welcome back, Chris de Berg, we like you so much."
I've spoken to a lot of artists about this. I think there is, first of all, there's the connection, I think, between you and certainly the songs, which you must be very proud of. The songs have struck a chord with people all over the world. That must be really it must be such a nice warm feeling as a songwriter.
It's an extraordinary thing because I put a lot of effort into my lyric, and to find out that there's people, like for example in Russia, or in China, or in places where they don't speak English, they take me to their hearts. Another place that's huge for me is Iran.
Wow.
And has been. I was the first Western artist to be given permission to perform there by the Islamic Council, and I went there to have a look-see with 4 or 5 other people to see where we could play.
Right.
And they said, well, there's a football stadium and you could sell 1 million tickets here in Tehran.
Oh, my God.
I know, it's outstanding. So, it means, we were only on this planet for a short time, and I'm having such a good time going around the world and doing what I love to do.
You still are, eh?
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's 7:15. We're chatting with Krista Berg. Heather and I were talking about Lady in Red yesterday.
That was my first slow dance when I was 13 at a party. And I've never forgotten that. It's one of my favorites.
When did you realize Lady in Red was going to be what it became, and what was that feeling like?
Well, I was recording that album, Into the Light, and with my band, because at that time I had a Canadian band based in Toronto, and we were doing football stadiums around Europe, and it was a very powerful record, I mean, we'd already had big hits with Don't Pay the Ferryman, and obviously the Spanish Train record in Canada, and High on Emotion. And then writing for this Into the Light album, I wanted to have a quiet ballad. And I came up with this line, I've never seen you looking so lovely as you did. And I thought, well, that's interesting. What does the word never mean? And so with Paul Hardiman, we were recording in Richard Branson's place in Oxfordshire, and we'd done a full week almost on this one song with real drums going doom bucka doom, and it sounded dreadful. So we actually erased the tape and started again. And one day we were working on this. I mean, there was a lot of other songs on the record. We were working on this particular one, and I had this idea of starting with this ooh, harmonized, and I remember turning to Paul Hardiman, the co-producer, and saying, "Do you know, this is like this is a thought for the morning. Sitting naked with a fur coat around you. There's such a warm, gorgeous feeling." And I said, with great respect to Bolivians everywhere in the world, especially in Bolivia, this will be a hit, possibly. It's going to be a number one, maybe somewhere like Bolivia. And it's got number one written all over it. And it's just something about it. And it's much bigger than me. People in the United States hadn't a clue who Krista Berg is, but they certainly know the Lady in Red.
Yeah. Wait, how many records did that sell?
As a single,
do you know?
I'm told about 8 million.
Wow.
Yes.
I want to ask you about life at home, the castle you grew up in, and other stories. And I'd love to have you play something.
Sure.
À votre choix, monsieur.
Oui.
Yeah.
Well,
okay, we're gonna take a break. You decide what you want to do.
Okay.
I have a special request for you later, because you're going to stay with us for at least an hour, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. 7:18. Krista Berg is our very special guest this morning. 7:22, one of our favorite people in the world has dropped by early in the morning, which I should, by the way, remind you, it's the wrong end of the clock. As I always say, any performer, this is not the right end of the clock. Although you said you've been trying to keep a British time clock on this Canadian tour, right?
That's right. Yeah. Well, I came from my home in Ireland on like last year. It was actually on Saturday.
Right.
And I thought, because I've got so many early mornings, I might as well stick to that time, although it's not that easy to hang on to. Particularly, around 6 o'clock in the evening, I'm exhausted. And then somebody says, well, let's go out to dinner.
Yeah.
But listen, I've got a guitar here, and,
Yes.
and I was going to play a track from my new album, which I'll probably do a bit later on.
Okay.
But I was thinking then during the break, why not go back to a song or a little medley of songs.
Excellent.
Because when in your previous incarnation in CHOM, I walked in and there was this huge picture of the Spanish Train cover, which the North American one was way, way better than the UK.
Is that
one.
right?
Yeah.
Oh.
You had the train in the distance and all
Yeah.
that stuff. Very, very evocative. So I thought, well, might as well go back to the beginning here.
Okay, Krista Berg live on CHOM. Good morning.
There's a Spanish train that runs between Guadalquivir and Old Seville. At dead of night the whistle blows and people hear she's running still. And then they hush their children back to sleep, lock the doors, upstairs they creep, for it is said that the souls of the dead fill that train 10,000 deep. Well, a railway man lay dying with his people by his side, His family were crying, knelt in prayer before he died. But above his bed, just awaiting for the dead, was the devil with a twinkle in his eye. Well, God's not around, and look what I've found. This one's mine. And I said, Lord, oh Lord, don't let him win. The sun is down and the night is riding in. That train is still on time and my soul is on the line. Oh Lord, you've got to win. And a spaceman came traveling on his ship from afar. 'Twas light years of time since his mission did start. And over a village he halted his craft. It hung in the sky like a star, just like a star. And we sing la da 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 da. Sing with me. La da 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 da. Peace and goodwill to all men, and love for the child. And now for something completely different. And with a swing of her hips, she started to strip to tremendous applause. She took off her drawers, and with a lick of her lips, she undid all the clips, threw it all in the air, and everybody stared. And as the last piece of clothing fell to the floor, the police were yelling out for more. On a Saturday night in 1924. I've never seen you looking so lovely as you did tonight. I've never seen you shine so bright. I've never seen so many men ask you if you wanted to dance. They're looking for a little romance, given half a chance. And I have never seen that dress you're wearing, or the highlights in your hair that catch your eyes. I have been blind. The lady in red is dancing with me, cheek to cheek. There's nobody here, nobody here. It's just you and me. It's where I wanna be, but I hardly know. This beauty by my side, yes, I'll never forget the way you look tonight. The lady in red, my lady in red.
I can't even believe that just happened.
Took you back to when you were 13, right, Heather?
You know, when you started to play the opening chords of Spanish Train, I'm going to sound like a big a wussy because it made me a little emotional, because I thought of all those years ago, and I'm sitting up in the white seats in the Forum looking down at the tiny speck on stage, and now you're sitting right beside me. It's a big thrill for me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Chris. And we're not done. We're not done,
neither am I. I'm here for the next 6 days or so. Just keep on bringing the bananas and the tea. I'm fine.
Okay. It's just a promo tour you're on. I know you were in Toronto yesterday with our friend Kim Mitchell, and you're just letting people know there's a new record coming, and then you'll be back here to play live in September, right, at Place des Arts?
The exciting part of this one is the first few shows we're doing is at Toronto, Ottawa, Quebec City, and Montreal in the Place des Arts. I think it's the 30th that we have the Place des Arts. It's with an orchestra. Mm-hmm. And I've worked a lot with orchestras in the past, and it's a thrilling sound. And I'm really looking forward to it. I think the rest of the Canadian tour will be with band only, but the orchestra stuff is great.
Yeah, it makes for a big, big sound, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I was refreshing my memory last night about, your beginnings and stuff, and I don't know why I never knew this, but you were born in Argentina.
My mother was there.
Your mother was there. Because your family traveled around an awful lot,
That's right?
Yeah. And grew up in a castle, and the story that I read was derelict castle. How can a castle be derelict?
Well, when we moved in, there was no furniture, no light, no heat, and no water.
Okay, so, there you go.
The previous owner of the castle had kept exotic birds in, like pheasants and partridges, in some of the rooms internally. And my family had very little money, so my grandfather, General Sir Eric de Burgh, a general in the British Army, he had some pension money, and he bought this castle and a farm around it. And so from the age of 12, it was very exciting, of course, to grow up and be very much involved in farming. And I have great respect for farmers. If you have farmers listening this morning, I tell you what, you have the toughest job in the world, second only to a housewife with young children. My God, that's a tough one. But farming is something I got into with my brother, my mother and father. We had all sorts of animals, milking cows first thing in the morning, very exciting stuff, and lambs and sheep. And then in the summer, we had it as a small hotel, up to 50 guests. And in the evening, there was nothing like TV or anything. So people would sit around chatting and having a few beers. And I'd pull out a guitar, and everybody had a guitar. And I'd sing the hits of the day, and Beatles and Dylan and occasional Irish folk song. And then one or two of my own ones, which went down like a lead balloon. Just trying it out. And by the time I actually even stood on a professional stage, I'd done hundreds of these kind of living room things.
So that upbringing definitely colored your path as a balladeer and a storyteller, correct?
Very much so. Yeah. I think if you believe in that 10,000 hour theory, I did the 10,000 hours in that place without. The place is called Bargy Castle, in a quaint little village called Tom Haggard, near the southeast coast of Ireland. And it's still in the family. My mother lives there. My father's passed away. And it's 12th century, and then bits and pieces were added in the 15th century. And it was very inspirational, obviously, for a young lad. In fact, when I was writing for this new album, The Hands of Man, I was thinking, now, I've had a very unique upbringing here. What can I bring to a song? And I came up with a bizarre song, which is on the record. It's interesting, called The Ghost of Old King Richard. And it's about King Richard I, who, on his way back from the Crusades, he'd been given a relic of the Holy Cross, and it was stolen from him. And then he was chucked into prison, I think in Germany. And so this is imagination. He's walking up, stalking the halls of these corridors of this big castle, saying, "Give me back my piece of the cross," etc.
When does the new record come out, by the way?
It's out yesterday.
Yeah,
Tuesday the 3rd. Today's the 4th.
Today's the 4th.
Yeah.
So
what about a song from this record? Now
yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It's 7:32 if you just joined us. Chris de Burgh is live in the CHOM studio this morning, and we're just beside ourselves as the time ticks away. So this is, what's the new album called, Chris?
It's called The Hands of Man. In fact, I'll tell you what, let me give you just a taster of the title track, because this record, it's a combination of the emotions that I like to bring as a songwriter. For example, the title track is about what the incredible things that our hands can do, and without thumbs, we would have absolutely become completely different species, because we can put thumbs and forefingers together, and that makes us very adept and agile. But can you imagine not having a thumb, right? You couldn't do anything.
Can't do anything.
No, you couldn't pick up a cup of tea, couldn't play guitar, nothing.
Yeah.
So it's about the magnificent things, the artistic creations, the cathedrals we've built, sending men to the moon. Also, the fact that we can create weapons of mass destruction. That's the Hands of Man song, and then there's another one which is the current single called "The Keeper of the Keys," which is again, I write very much like a film of a man overhearing a woman in a prison. and she's trying to get her freedom. And it's about the right of every woman everywhere in the world to have education, to wear what they like without being told what to do by men, have a life of dignity. It's a very powerful song. But what I'm going to sing for you is a fun tune. It's like a 1940s Andrews Sisters, the Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy from Company B sort of thing.
Okay.
There goes my heart again, lost in the dark again. One touch, a crowded room, the whisper of her name. How could a simple kiss turn me upside down like this? There goes my heart again, I'm losing it over you. So many people said, don't lose your heart again. But look, what could I do when lightning strikes this way? She took me by surprise with that something special in her eyes. There goes my heart again, and I'm losing it over you. I've done my time in the prison of love, and just when they let me out, I'm back inside again. So throw away the key, this is where I want to be. There's no need to escape, 'cause she's in here with me. If this is doing time, well, my friends, I'm doing fine. There goes my heart again, and I'm losing it over you.
I love that.
Oh my God, it's so good.
That's the short version.
Yeah,
That's
I
good
love
fun.
that. I love that melody.
fantastic.
Yeah, that's terrific, Chris. I smell hit.
That's very, very nice. Thank you.
7:36. If you just joined us, Chris de Burgh is with us live. I was asking you this off the air. I'm going to ask you on the air because I think that people are interested in this. I've always wondered what the life, the daily life is for someone who, has had a very successful career, and is able to pretty much, do as they please when they please. That's a wonderful freedom in life, which I'm sure you have a deep appreciation for. So how do you set up your days, your weeks, and are you still living over in Ireland?
Yes, I live with my wife and elder son, who's relocated back from London. He's a musician, a bloody good one, too.
I was just going to ask you if the kids followed.
Yeah, he's an electronic musician. He's released as Hubie Davison, and he's released on a Berlin label. He's on vinyl and all this stuff.
Nice.
Fascinating music. It's much more complex than what I do. Mine is pretty well bog standard, actually. But his is more like classical music. Wow. And my daughter, Rosanna, she got married last year, and she lives nearby. And we live in the hills of Wicklow, a very pretty area. So my days, when the kids were little, I'd take them to school every morning.
Right.
Even if I was on tour, I'd manage to get back on a day off and keep that close. The family thing is really important to me.
A lot of music in the house?
Actually not.
Really?
Funnily enough, no. I kind of wander around sort of singing to myself, and but there's a bit of music.
Yeah.
I like listening to classical music quite a bit, because that for me is real music. That's Handel, Pachelbel, and all the greats. Mozart.
When did the kids become aware that Dad was I don't want to use the word celebrity, but Dad was, made his living with a guitar and had a lot of fans? And
well, I guess when they started coming to concerts,
Oh, okay.
And they kind of look around going, my God, really shouting at Daddy. But my younger boy also, he's in sports management business. He's actually
is that right?
in Liverpool today to see a football match, his favourite football team.
I understand you're a big Liverpool fan, are you not?
Absolutely, yeah. And I since I was a lad, man and boy. But my days nowadays, now that the children aren't so needing
dependent,
yeah, exactly. well, let me think. The day I would wake up and I would look in the mirror and go, it's Christopher Berg, I don't believe it. And then we have one of the things that I really wanted for years as I travelled around the world was have an indoor swimming pool. Nice. So I managed to spend a lot of time learning about that, and we have one. So I go swimming every day, probably about 800 meters, maybe.
Wow!
And keep fit.
Yeah, well, you look fit.
Thank you. And breakfast would be fruit. I love mixed fruits. Mm-hmm. Just keep busy during the day. I mean, I have a very wide number of things that interest me.
Are you a putterer? Putter around the house and
sort of. Yeah, I do this and that, and emails, and But it's I'm delighted to. I mean, to get to this point that after 40 years in the business, people are still interested in what I do. That's incredible, to be honest.
But you've always been ever since the first time I met you, you've been a very humble man, and also a person who's incredibly grateful for the things that have come your way.
Yeah.
And there's something very refreshing about that, I may add, Mr. de Burgh.
Well, I'm highly aware that if it wasn't for the fans actually wanting to see and hear me, I would be at home, sort of staring out the window quite a lot more.
Right.
But the fact is, I know that, for example, if you go onto my Facebook page, I know there's people who have put up links to this. So if you're listening live, wherever you are in the world, it's a cold here. It's actually, to be honest, it's been a heat wave here.
Yeah,
sort of -6.
Yeah.
But it's been a snowstorm last night, and I'm looking out the window, and it's just great to be back in Canada. And I'm a very lucky guy.
Yeah. We're having a relatively good. We think it's warm. It's -3 this morning. The last couple of days has been -30 with the wind, so you dodged that bullet. We have to take a break, and when we come back, a couple of more tunes, I would imagine.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay. Chris de Burgh is here live in the CHOM studio. We couldn't be more excited. It's exactly 20 to 8, and if you're listening on, on a computer somewhere around the world, thank you. I've got a number of emails. I'll read some of them to Chris here in just a bit.
Brilliant.
7:44, Chris de Burgh is live in the studio, and as often happens when you're with somebody who's as nice as Chris, we're having a lovely conversation off the air, and he was telling me the story about meeting Paul McCartney, and we began to talk about artists like Chris who have a deep appreciation for where they are at this point in their career and all the hard work that you've done.
Absolutely, and the number of artists who you were saying don't like to come and sing first thing in the morning.
They won't have it,
Yeah. But I was, some years ago, I was playing a song on WNEW in New York, and it was early in the morning, and I did this one, and the phone rang into the studio, and the engineer said, we've got somebody on air, you might want to have a word. And it was Meatloaf.
No.
He said, I gotta say that whoever this guy is singing that song this time in the morning, that's respect.
That's fantastic.
And years later, I met the guy and spent a lot of time with Meat, as you call him. And he is such a nice guy.
Yeah, he's lovely.
But it was this song which I'm going to do.
Okay.
I'm going to give it my best shot. It's got some high notes, so I may not give it the full throttle.
Okay.
I don't want to scare
It is early.
I don't want to scare the children. I remember when I went into the studio to record this, I said, played it to the band, and they got completely confused. They said, what on earth is this about? And I thought, well, what I'll do is I'll write down a movie score about exactly what's happening here. So I'll just put this into your brain. Okay, it's late at night, and there's a rider coming in from the left-hand side. This is the film, so watch this film. And it's a kind of dirt track, and he's coming at high speed. The cape is flowing behind him, and the camera's moving along with him, and there's the moon going behind the trees in and out, and he comes flying along, and then the horse rears up right at the edge of a cliff, and you look down, and there's the river way down below, and it's sparkling in the moonlight, and there's a man waiting down there. He's in a little boat, and he's about to take you across the river. And I explained all this to the band, and they said, that makes complete sense. So it's a moment of destiny, and this was the song. A bit of it, anyway. It was late at night on the open road, speeding like a man on the run, a lifetime spent preparing for the journey. He is closer now when the search is on, reading from a map in the mind. Yes, there's the rugged hill and there's the boat on the river. And when the rain came down, he heard a wild dog howl. There were voices in the night. Don't do it. Voices out of sight. Too many men have failed before. Whatever you do, don't pay the ferryman. Don't even fix a price. Don't pay the ferryman until he gets you to the other side. Don't pay the ferryman.
That's fantastic.
I'm better in the evening with that one.
That's a tall order this time of the day, isn't it?
Oh, well, that's same note as before.
Gosh, what a beautiful story you tell. It's a 7:48. Tell the story about meeting McCartney. Where were you when you saw McCartney across the room?
I was backstage with my daughter, Rosanna. You may know that she won the Miss World competition in 2003. Very beautiful young woman. And she went on into a completely different career. Finished her university studies, got an honours degree in sociology and history of art, and then did a lot of catwalk stuff and then a lot of TV stuff, photography stuff. Wow. She was the first Irish girl to feature on the European Playboy and the US Playboy.
How proud you must have been, eh?
Big
Good for you.
Big dad pride there, I can tell you. And anyway, she and I were invited to the this X Factor, thing. Yep. I'm sure you have the same thing.
We do.
Which, incidentally, just on a side moment here, is that program, unfortunately, too many people think that it's a instant stardom, but what it is, it's an entertainment show. That's right.
That's
okay.
Right.
Don't get confused into a long music business career. Anyway, across the room is Paul McCartney, and he kind of waved at me, and I went over, and he's my hero, right? And he said, I feel as if I've known you a very long time, but we've never met.
Oh my God!
And I went into a dribble on the floor and a long chat with him. And last year, when I was actually doing an electronic press kit video for my new album, The Hands of Man, we spent 5 days in Liverpool. We went. It was very much themed around that city and the music and my new album and all the other associations. And I went on one occasion to Paul McCartney's house where he was a teenager. Wow. And it's a little house that the National Trust are looking after, left in the 50s style. And there's a small little living room there with a fireplace and a piano that he wrote when I'm 64. And I had the chance to play that song on that piano.
Oh, my God.
Cool.
There's a photograph on the wall of him and John Lennon, both with guitars, both very young looking. And on the floor is a song that they're currently writing. I saw her standing there. And I was just in there. I mean, for a real Beatle-phile like me, it was a marvelous feeling to actually meet these people. And
the first record I ever bought, played on a little plastic tone-arm turntable, was a copy of She Loves You when I was a very, very, very small kid.
Yes.
Do you remember the first Beatles song you heard and what it did to you?
Yes, it was Love Me Do.
Was it?
Love Me Do. And... also, Mr. Tambourine Man, and it was that thing. Hang on a second. Okay. I could play it better then. And that doom 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 on the bass, and then I just went, "Oh my gosh, what is this?" And I was just a young lad. And the excitement of, like, for example, waiting for the White Album, or Rubber Soul. I mean, this was the real stuff.
I'm trying to, I watch you play guitar. You don't have to look at the frets. It's all by feel after a while, isn't it? Does a guitar become like your favorite car, where you don't have to think about what you're doing, or?
Yeah. Well,
where your fingers are going, like you say Tambourine Man, you immediately go to the right fret. You know what I mean?
Just about it.
Is it after you've played for so many years, does it just become like autopilot kind of thing?
Sort of thing. I think you've probably seen people on stage and they're looking down at the guitar all the time. I don't do that.
No, I know you don't.
You got to connect with your audience.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well. Any requests out there? By the way?
I have one.
Okay.
I have one. I've been waiting. I was going to wait until the end. One of my favorite songs, and largely because I've told you the story about my buddy Quentin, who said, "You've got to come over and hear this record," and introduce me to Spanish Train. I'll be forever grateful. One of our favorite songs on that record was "Old Friend."
Ooh,
I love that song. It's such a. Have I thrown you a curveball?
I'll try.
Okay.
A bit of it, eh?
Yeah.
Old friend, so you're in trouble again. You asked me today to try and find a little time and maybe have a glass of wine, old friend. I remember you. You used to take me fishing down by the wishing well. One day you threw a wish in and we listened while it fell. And you said, when the years are heavy and my heart is growing cold, well, I wish when the evening comes that there'll always be some old friend who'll miss me too.
Thank you so much, Chris. Oh. What was the inspiration for that?
My grandfather.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because my buddy and I were remarking last night online, it takes on new significance now because we've been friends for 40 years.
That's nice.
Yeah. Can I read you a couple of, just a couple of people wanted to ask a couple of questions. I'm sure you have them too, Heather. A regular listener of ours named Glenn said, I've seen Chris in concert at least 5 times, but he's never done Diamond in the Dark. Could you ask him why?
Ooh. It's just, I can't remember it. Okay. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Is it real what I feel? It's probably, I can't remember it. No, we haven't. We'll try and put that straight next time.
Here's a note from Brent who says, I don't have CHOM reception at the office, so I'm just going to be an hour late for work today. Please tell him.
Yeah, right. I'm getting a lot of texts saying I'm not getting out of the car.
Yeah. And a lot of people saying you're bringing back such lovely memories, and a lot of people are emotion listening. You have my emotions stretched from tears to outright laughter and everything in between. It has been so since I last saw Chris at Théâtre Saint-Denis so many years ago. Merci, old friend, from Thérèse.
Papa de quoi, yeah.
Okay, that's nice.
Listen to this one, Secret of Happiness. Listen to Chris de Burgh once a day.
Well, I'm a happy guy, you know. As we spoke earlier, I'm a very lucky person. Yeah. And, of course, I work very hard for the luck. And it's been a long and tough career. You know, there's been lots of ups and downs and holes in the road and stuff. But nevertheless, I look very much on the positive side of life.
Well, as we started out the conversation talking about back in, I guess, 75, maybe 76, around that era, very difficult for a man with a guitar to wander onto stage and try and grab the attention of a crowd, and that took, as you say, cojones.
Yes.
You had to fight your way through to get people to listen to your music.
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, we didn't have the internet then, and if you were doing a radio tour, you went to every single station. Mm-hmm. You didn't just sit and do ISDNs. You know, talk to everybody all over the world for one afternoon. There was one occasion, just to give you an example of the aforementioned cojones, is that I was doing a tour with, again, probably with Supertramp and Gallagher and Lyle, and nobody would be interested in introducing me as the first act, you know, which is, you know, I had to fight my corner every step of the way. And one evening at a concert, I was saying, anybody able to introduce me? And I thought, right, I'm going to take this one on. So I walked onto the stage and I said, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The house lights were there. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like you to put your hands together for a very exciting new young talent who's emerging with his first album, Far Beyond These Castles. Would you please give a warm welcome to A&M artist Chris de Burgh? And I walked off the stage, picked up a guitar and walked back on again.
That's amazing. How did people react to that?
They loved it. That broke the ice, I tell you.
That's true. Castle Walls was before.
That's correct. That was my first album. Yeah. And Spanish Shame is the dreaded second album. And I just managed to get it right. You know? Yeah. Usually your first album is, you put all those songs you've ever written into the first album, and then you struggle with the second one. But
I'm going to go quickly off topic because I know you're going to have to go soon, and I maybe get you to play another song from the new album.
Yeah.
But I was watching a movie a couple of weekends ago called Will, about an orphan kid who goes to see Liverpool play in 2005 when they won. And I was taken by the fanaticism of the Liverpool fan. Is there any way you can explain that to a Canadian audience?
Well, I think you have it with your hockey, don't you?
Probably,
Stanley Cup and all that.
Probably. Except soccer fans seem a little nuttier.
Well, to a certain extent, I'm afraid I'm a little embarrassing when I go to a football match. And if my team score, I'm yelling and shouting. My children say, Dad, take it easy. But I just talk about, I went to the famous Miracle of Istanbul in 2005 with my family. We flew across to Istanbul and went up to this match where we were 3 down to AC Milan in the first half. And grown men were crying, and a lot of people actually left the stadium and says, no point watching this anymore.
Because they were deep underdogs, were they not?
Oh, absolutely. We were being smashed left, right and centre. And then it was the Miracle, And I remember at that time the club was owned by a good friend of mine, David Moores and his wife. And I remember after that a sensational ending to the match, looking up and I could see them and both of them were hugging and crying. And grown men were, It was just, I think, I'm a rugby fan too and a sports fan in general, but football is this incredible skills. These big men running at high speed with amazing skills. Yeah,
and it says something about the magnitude of the victory because British men are not wont to cry or hug for that matter. Is that right?
Unfortunately, I'm one of these people that I can go into that place I suppose as a songwriter, I can go into that place where empathy is so important to be able to see something, and be part of the film. I've written a lot of songs that if I was watching this in a cinema, I'd be reaching for the Kleenex. Jesus, this is really getting me. Or the opposite, good fun stuff like Patricia the Stripper.
We have to take a quick break. When we come back, Chris will play another song before he leaves. It is just about 8 o'clock. Chris de Burgh, live in the CHOM studio. We were getting so many texts. I can't read them all to Chris because he has to go soon, but please say hello to Chris from Alan at the NDG Post Office. I'm enjoying so much. Secret of happiness, listening to Chris de Burgh every day. Getting goosebumps this morning. Here's one that says, love your music, Chris. My family for years have enjoyed it. My grandpa loved it. My mom raised me listening to it, and I was named after you.
Oh, wow.
It must be such a powerful thing to move people with your songs, eh?
I tell you, I'm humbled, really genuinely humbled when I hear that. I just recently, just last week, I heard a story about a lady from America who went back to Ireland, to Cork, to bury her favourite auntie.
Oh, my God.
And after everybody had left the graveside, it was just her and her 2 brothers. And one of them said, do you remember her favourite song was Patricia the Stripper?
Oh, wow.
And the 3 of them danced around the grave singing Patricia.
Oh, my God.
Stuff like that. It's wonderful.
That's still a big hit at shows, eh?
It sure is, yeah.
Yeah.
That's this one, by the way. I'm going to do a little bit. I know people keep saying I have to go and do a TV show or something. Yeah, no.
I'm going to quickly settle an arm. Sure. Spaceman Came Traveling. Christmas song or no?
It was a Christmas song, but it was written in August.
Okay,
just a bit of this one.
Okay.
Because this is the way I feel about Montreal.
Okay.
I've been missing you more than words can say. I've got the roses, I've got the wine. With a little luck, she will be here on time. This is the place we used to go with romantic music and the lights down low. And as you stand there amazed at the door, and you're wondering what all this is for, it's just a simple thing from me to you, the lady that I adore. 'Cause there's something that you should know. It's that I've been missing you more than words can say, and that I've been thinking about it every day. And the time we had, just dancing nice and slow. And I said, now I found you, I'm never letting go. A bientôt, Montréal.
Beautiful, Chris. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Pleasure. Do I have one more?
Yes,
you have all the time you
if
want.
I had my way, you'd be here till 10 o'clock. But the folks at Hello Bonjour may have something to say that. Okay.
Well, this is actually a new song from the new album.
Could you just quickly, I'm sorry to interrupt,
okay.
Can you quickly, the last song, is that, you paint such a vivid picture of the door and waiting and the anticipation. Is that, does that from a memory of yours? Or
No, it's just imagination.
Okay, good.
I mean, if you want to be in my head, it's like a multiplex cinema. There's all sorts of stuff going on all the time, good and bad. But this reminds me, this next song reminds me of emigration, and a lot of people had to leave Ireland to seek work during the Celtic Tiger collapse and so on, and prior to that. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure maybe some of the people listening here have relatives from that part of the world who had to leave. And it's a song about one thing I remember when I was, plodding around England or London for 2.5, 3 years trying to get somewhere in the music business and banging on doors. Sundays always used to be the most miserable day of the week. Everybody had left town. There was always rain falling and the newspapers blowing down empty streets. So I wrote this song called Big City Sundays, and I'm sure some people will remember how this feels. Birds on the wing, we are the lost generation. We have to go, breaking the hearts of a nation. Oh, but I'm fine, this city's okay, this is my time. I'm finding my way in this brave new world. But there's one thing, here on a Sunday it's always the same. The streets are deserted, just me and the rain. On big city Sundays it's silver to be, holding back the tears, dreaming of home. Home, where my heart is. Home, the sea and the sky and that feeling inside, just to be with my friends. How I long for that feeling again. On big city Sundays, it's when I'm alone. I'm holding back the tears, dreaming of home.
Just fantastic, Chris. The new album is called
Hands of Man.
Can't wait to
get my hands on that.
Yeah, pop open a bottle of wine and find the comfy chair and put it on.
That's the one.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Merci mille fois. I don't know how to say it.
Plaisir d'être
yeah, you've been a long-time friend to CHOM, and I want you to know how much we appreciate it. You're very, we appreciate your kindness.
We loved every second, and I'm so sad it's over.
Yeah, me too.
Well, I'd like to say all those people still listening, haven't fallen asleep or on the way to work. It's been a pleasure, and genuinely, I have such a love for Montreal and the Quebecois people. And thank you for starting my career at a time when I didn't really know what was going on in the world, and I was struggling. And suddenly, this big flashing light comes from Montreal, actually started by CHOM, and my career took off and gave me great confidence that someone somewhere liked what I did. So thank you for that.
Lovely association for us too, and thanks for never forgetting us, Chris. Look forward to seeing you in September.
Okay.
Chris de Burgh live in the CHOM studio. It's 8:10.